Welcome to XO News TV. I'm Michael Sala. In this second episode of an interview with Tony Rodrigues conducted at Mt Shasta on August 29, we continue to learn critical information about how personnel are treated in secret space programs. Tony says that he completed a 20 and back program from 1981 to 2001 in a number of covert programs, including service with the least known of the programs, what has been called the Dark Fleet. Unlike prior participants of secret space programs who have come forward, Michael Ralph, Randy Kramer, and Corey Good, Tony did not undergo a formal military induction process where he signed recruitment papers outlining the terms of his service and the process by which he would be returned to civilian life. Instead, Tony was forced into service as a slave, where he had no rights and had to do whatever his superiors desired, as exemplified in the first episode where he was used as a drug courier and then as a sex slave. In this episode, Tony resumes his story after a 3-year period in Seattle, where in 1988 at age 16 he was again taken to the moon and given rudimentary training as a slave soldier who would be expected to perform suicide missions against insectoid and other extraterrestrial species. The advanced healing technologies in these programs allowed for seriously injured slave soldiers to be rapidly healed so they could perform multiple missions. After his short training on the moon, Tony was taken to Mars, where he was expected to conduct suicide missions which would support regular Mars super soldiers in their battles with insectoids and other indigenous races. In the following interview segments, Tony describes his trip to the moon and training there before being taken to Mars to perform what amounted to suicide missions. Well, welcome back, Tony, to XO News. And we are now going to look at what happened to you in 1988 when you were basically taken back to the moon and you were subjected to some military training. So tell us what happened there.
That was another round of surgeries. And they seemed to be more concerned with, the surgeries were like my arms and legs, and there were other things done. There really wasn't any training, as more as there was a few tests and aptitude. I remember that there was a machine that they put me in that kind of like held each limb, and then it would test how strong you were. Mm-hmm. It was I remember it was fun. I thought it was fun, out of that whole experience. And then I was kept in like a closet, but it wasn't. It was a cubicle. It was a cubicle with blankets and stuff on the floor. And I was kept there for a while in between. And they would give me a surgery, and they would let something happen. They would wait a day or two. We were there, and there were others like me. I wasn't the only one. And right when we were taken. We left there, and I believe that I was taken to another moon base, and I remember that the trapezoid base had a small hangar that was not pressurized, so you had to wait for the umbilical to come onto the whatever you were on and walk into the base. It wasn't pressure. You went inside a hangar, and I remember we left there and went to another base on the moon that was pressurized. You went into the hangar and you could just get out on steps out of whatever you were in to transport. And there were other ships. It was a big place, well lit, and I remember it just had a different feel to it. It was more welcoming. The other place was dark and small, and it was more scary, if that means anything. We were there, and there was a military area, and there might have been a dozen of us that were in the same program together, whatever. And they took us in. I remember going down some long hallways, and they looked normal. There were doors with like a peephole. A couple of them had peepholes, and they were normal doors. And we went down a few long hallways, and we were marched in. They said in single file line, and they said just stand here by the wall and wait. Other people came and checked us out. They had doctors come and just go by the wall, and they took down we had a ID badge, like a number. And they took us down and they checked us in, and then we went into an area, like a bigger room with some big doors on one side of it, and they had us change clothes into a one-piece suit, and one piece like a jumpsuit. They were all different colors. Some guys had gray, some guys had different colors, anyhow, and they gave us a canister that was about the size of a little smaller than a can of pop, like one of those small cans of Nutra drink or whatever, and it had a button on the top of it. And they said once you go through there was a military guy that said lined up. He handed us each of those. He said don't press the button. He said once you go through those doors, those are going to arm. If you press the button now, nothing's going to happen. But as soon as you go through those doors, it's going to arm, and when you press the button, it's going to explode. It's a grenade. And they said if anything comes towards you, I would be smart and blow it up with you. If it's something's going to kill you, you blow it up with you. So we all kind of didn't. Those were our only instructions. That was what we did. We went inside. The doors opened up, and it was like a sandy pit, like a big room, with a couple inches of sand, like a really coarse, not beach sand, but like more coarse than that, and concrete walls. And then I remember looking up, and there were big fence. There was fencing that was hanging from the ceiling. Then it looked like it could drop down and protect the people that were watching. There was a balcony, and you couldn't really see anybody up there from where I was standing. We didn't go out into the middle of the place. I stayed under the awning of the balcony. We were all scared. We were scared shitless. All of us were. And the door closed behind us, and we were just standing around for a minute, and then a door on the other end opened up, and a giant insect thing it had 2 or 3 pinchers on it on the front. It looked more like an ant, but it had like tiger stripes, like a tiger stripe. And it came in very slowly, like it didn't want to, and it looked like it was scared as well and moved around slowly. And we all immediately bunched together, and we were volleying to, push somebody in front of you. Everybody wanted to push somebody in front of them. And I remember just as I got it started moving toward us slowly, cautiously, and along the other wall, and we started moving along the wall away from it as far as we could. And when it got, I guess, parallel to us in the whatever that was, I could hear people yelling. There were guys up in the crowd yelling, "You're all gonna die, you faggots! Just hurry up, don't be a pussy!" Sorry about the language, but they were yelling. They were laughing, and I remember being pushed out where I was the closest one, and kind of thinking in my head, "What do I do? Should I run at it and do it?" And in my mind, I couldn't get past its pinchers. They were long, and I saw it's going to pinch my hand off before I get even close enough to blow it up. And as soon as I was thinking that, another guy ran at it full speed, and he blew himself up. He blew in half, and he blew the head of it off into pieces. I mean, there was nothing left of its head. Like he ran with it on his belly and ran at it and detonated. And everybody cheered. Immediately the door opened. 3 people with lab coats ran in and scooped. I was later told that guy lived, even though he was blown up badly. They ran in and started working on him. They took us out, and everybody was happy. There was like elation, and
Can you tell us about the insectoid in terms of its behaviour towards the 6 of you that were there? You have these
it looked
grenades.
Scared. It looked scared, but as it crept closer to us, it looked like it was getting a little bit more aggressive or confident or whatever. It looked like it was intent on doing something. At first, it didn't even want to come near us. It stayed over there for a while, for a few minutes, and it started slowly coming towards us. Other than being really scared. I guess that's true. We were plugged in. I didn't mention this earlier. We were plugged in before we were drawn to that base in the trapezoid base. We were plugged into movies. They gave us drugs, and we were seeing movies, and it was fight or flight response. It was basically it was like subliminal stuff, and they gave you the binaural tone, and it was don't flee, you're better if you attack. It was fight or flight. They were saying fight. It was subliminal programming for fight only, no flight.
Right. Okay.
We were basically being trained to run at whatever and basically suicide bomb. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, we were took into a medical room. We all got checkups, standard checkups again. There were cots in the room, and we got to sleep. And the next day, we were taken on a transport, a bigger one, again with the wide seats. And
well, before we get into what happened after that, is there anything about that particular moon base? This is not the trapezoid base, but this is that second base that had that amphitheater. Do you recall anything about the base itself that might help us identify what that base was?
Other than the huge, we were taken almost in direct route. There were lines on the wall, but we had somebody with us at all times. But we were taken in direct route from where we were. We went kind of downstairs. I remember we rode an elevator.
Like anything, like signs, lines on the floors.
There were lines on the floor and on the wall. They went up on the wall.
Can you describe those lines on the floor?
They were just your standard lines. Some of them were different colors.
Different colored lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, the doors. I remember passing places where I saw other people, and in rooms with other people that looked. It looked like they had a normal life going on, like a workplace.
Oh, okay.
Where I wanted, and they were like, "No, you guys, come on, we're going here." And we were taken to a more boring areas.
Can you describe anything about where you saw those people working in what looked like a kind of normal office environment?
That's right. It was more like an office building, but not a really fancy one. Where we were.
Were the people? Did you know? Standard. Were they wearing kind of uniforms?
Uniform people. Yep. And a lot of people in like a one piece suit. I remember.
One piece suits, right?
A lot like that, but a lot of those details. These are things that I haven't really given any thought to.
If I mean, you know a little bit about Lunar Operations Command now. Do you think this facility with the amphitheater where you were put through that training, do you think that was Lunar Operations Command?
I believe so. It seems to me I remember while we were flying from one to the other that there were only a couple bases. It wasn't like there were many places to go. That there was a base that was the main one, and we were taken to another one. A small. Okay. It was a smaller base, the trapezoid one.
The trapezoid base is kind of people describe it as being the Dark Fleet base.
The pilot on the first flight said that it was like that because he told the story of how when it was built, and I don't remember a lot of it, but he said that the plans for the Pentagon were already drawn up. They didn't have to hire an architect. It was easy to convert the Pentagon into a vacuum environment. It was cheap. They used the same architectural plans, and then they just built on top of that. And then, for whatever reason, they chose that shape. I don't know. But the pilot over the intercom kind of gave the history of it a little bit, and he said that they saved a lot of money by doing that.
Okay, great. Anything else about this period on the moon that is distinctive before we go to the next segment where we're going to be looking at your time on Mars?
We went to sleep after that. We were allowed to sleep, and then whenever we got up, whenever, we were taken out on a transport, and I was on to Mars.
Okay, all right. Well, let's stop now, and we'll be back for you to tell us about Mars.
Thank you.
So we're back now again with Tony Rodrigues, and he's going to be telling us about what happened when you completed that training experience on the moon, and now you're being taken to Mars.
We were on the transport, and we went there, and when we got there, there wasn't a lot of people on the transport. There was mostly empty seats, and there was some reason we couldn't land, so we stayed in orbit for honestly a couple hours, and at one point, somebody came over the intercom and said that they were gonna, because we had such a huge delay, they would let us stretch out, and they turned off the gravity. They gave us zero gravity, and I was scared to do anything. I didn't want to get out of my seat. So I remained seated, and I remember a few of the other boys on the other side, they got out and they kind of floated around, and I regretted that. The reason I remember this is because I regretted not experiencing that for that whole time. I was really never exposed to absolute zero gravity. I was exposed to lesser gravity many times after that, but never zero gravity. So I regretted that. We eventually landed. I was taken right from that transport into a smaller one and taken to a small base that was almost empty. And like again, there was about a dozen of us that went. all together. And it was a small base. There might have been 20 soldiers there and a few command personnel, and it was made for 100 people or 150 people worth of, cafeteria. When everybody had lunch, it was empty cafeteria. It was a small part of it. It was basically like an abandoned forward base. And here the colors were very bright. The lines, everything was color coded. The tables were color coded. The walls were color coded. Everything was color coded. And the lines were very much bigger than what I had remembered on the moon that led to where you were. And they didn't give us rooms. They gave us like an office cubicle. Like it was one room with a bunch of office cubicles in it, and they gave us cots and blankets in there. That's where we stayed. It was like a temporary thing. We were there 2 or 3 days, and they gave us environment suits. They weren't issue what the soldiers had. The soldiers had like a bigger camouflaged reddish, more of an armored suit. And I remember they had like a heads-up computer thing, and they had a display on our arm, and we had a small one on our arm. And we were marched down a long hallway, and we were given a small gun. It was a rail gun. It was white. It matched the suit, and it was about that long. And if I let go of it, it stayed on my hand. I couldn't let go of it.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember anything about the insignia on the soldiers or on that base? Was there any kind of logos or anything?
There was, but I don't remember it. I honestly, I don't think the soldiers had any kind of logo on their suits at all. There were guys that had T-shirts with a logo on them for cafeteria, in the cafeteria,
right?
Like navy blue colors and like jumpsuit pants.
Right. And what about the soldiers' uniform? What was anything distinctive about it?
Well, they were all in casual wear. Nobody was really in uniform. There were a couple guys that were in more formal uniform. They were in charge, whatever the higher ranking guys, and there were only 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, and then we were just kept in a one piece. It was like a zip up, one piece thing that we wore, almost like a pajama, but like more durable.
So you're on Mars, and you're with some soldiers, and you have some companions, and you're about to go off on a mission.
Right. They walked us down a long hallway. We were dressed in all white, bright white, thin kind of suits. I remember thinking to myself, these are the best shoes I ever had on in my life. And probably still to this day that remains true. They were very effective and comfortable. We had a railgun. There was like a hood helmet and a clear transparent plastic that came out like about that much, and you could see, so you could breathe the air. And they told us we got a briefing right at the end of the door, and they handed us each what was called an auto tourniquet, and it was a box about the size of a pack of cigarettes, a little smaller than a pack of cigarettes, and it had a cord going down one side of it, and with a button that you could press. And he said if you need it, you pull it out, put it on a limb or your buddy, and press the button, and it would give you a tourniquet and save your life. In case something happened. They still didn't. They never really prepared us for what was out the door. We never fired the gun. I never had a time on a range or anything to fire the gun. They said it'll keep it safety. Don't shoot it. If something bad happens, use the gun. But they basically showed us how it worked, and that was it. I never got any time shooting it. 2 soldiers were there, and they let us out, and they were in way fancier camouflage, more like armored looking suits, and they said that if our program did well, we might be lucky enough to get upgraded to the better suits. I don't know if they had other things in there that helped them walk, made it easier on them. I don't know. We were let out, and immediately when you step out of the base, the gravity was less. So there was some kind of plating in the floor. There was something inside the base that made it more like 1G, and it was less than 1. There was less gravity. It was kind of hard to run, but we would all practice. We took 5 or 10 minutes to jump around and stuff. And I remember that there was a small crater, maybe 20 feet across, and I found a way to run around in it, really quick. And I was running. It was almost like almost like it was 1G. And he said, "That's enough of that. Let's go." And we marched single file line, and we walked maybe 5 miles out, and it was desert, and then there was a mountain range on one side, and it was desert. We walked out, and we walked back, and nothing happened. I think it was earlier in the morning. The sun was up, and we were led back in. The door closed, and that was it. I don't think it was the next day. I think it was 2 days later. We did the same exact thing. It was the same thing, and we went out and walked. And when we came back, there were people waiting for us, and they said they were happy it was a success. So I didn't hear anything. There was no shots fired. There was nothing, but they said our mission was a success, and the 2 soldiers were bragging, saying they kicked ass. So everybody was happy, and they made it sound like it was going to be something, and we were going to get our better suits, and we were going to be expanded, and everything was fine. The third time, it was later in the day, and the soldiers, they said, maybe if you guys are lucky, if we get out there long enough, we'll see how long we're out for, and maybe you'll see a purple sunset. You'll get to see the sunset there purple. We went out. There were six of us and 2 soldiers. So it was myself and 5 others in the white suits and 2 soldiers. And we were told, we were given a little map. It was digital. It was on our arm right here. And we were told to follow the line on the map.
Before you continue with that, can you tell us a little bit about the oxygen on Mars, the atmosphere on Mars?
It was
what
cold.
Were you able to? Did you have a face mask on?
Well, the face mask came out, and then it was an open hole. So I think when you exerted yourself, it gave you oxygen. But the technical stuff, I didn't really have to worry about.
Right. Okay. So basically, you're breathing the atmosphere on Mars. It was breathable, but you had some oxygen being supplied to augment that.
I believe so, but again, these are things that at the time I didn't pay attention to. I was comfortable. You know, it was a comfortable experience. We were walking. You could tell the air. You know, when you're in high altitude, or it was cold and I don't want to say hard to breathe, but it was different. You know. But I was comfortable. The suit was warm, and my shoes were great. Everything was pretty easy. It was almost enjoyable hiking.
Just a little cold.
The air was cold.
Right.
My face was cold.
But
yeah.
in your body
was fine.
The suit was keeping that warm, was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was not like a bulky thing. It wasn't like hard to move or anything like that. It was easy to move in it.
What would you estimate the kind of air temperature to have been?
Oh, low, like 40s,
40s,
50s in there. Like
so,
it felt like that.
So just like being at a high altitude.
Yeah. Yep. And you know, super brisk. You know. The third one, we walked for a lot longer. It seemed like, and we were I don't know if we were coming back. But we got to a point where we were getting away from the mountain. The trail on our map was, the mountain range was here, and we were walking away from it. And a couple of the guys that we were with were arguing. They said, we got to stay closer to the soldiers, and that they were up on the mountain range looking down at us. And they said, they're getting away from us. We need to stay close to them. And I said, no, they gave us this. We got to follow our instructions. What are you going to get in trouble? You know, this is where we're going. The soldiers will catch up. They obviously had it planned out. So we stopped and we argued, and 3 of the guys decided to go off and stay closer to the bridge of the mountain and not follow our path. And myself and 2 others went off. We walked for another 15 or 20 minutes, and clouds blew in. It started to get dark from clouds that blew in, and the wind picked up. And we kind of felt cut off, and then we said maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Maybe we should go try to find those guys. And we could hear in the back behind us, sounded like hooves, you know, like footsteps. We could hear like a rumbling, and we could look back and see dust being kicked up. There were dunes, you know. It was really rocky with sand blown up, and we were hiking. We were going over dunes that were 5 or 6 feet tall, and we could hear them, and we thought, those are the bugs. We knew that there were bugs, and we started running. And I started out. I remember I was and it was the same thing. It was kind of like I wanted to keep the other guy in between me and the bugs, and so I was in front.
And so when you say that, so you and the others were aware that these bugs were similar to that insectoid that you encountered on the moon?
Yeah, well, we were instructed to shoot them. If we saw any bugs, to shoot them.
Okay.
You know, that was part of the instructions. We ran for a little ways, and it got really dark, and I remember there was an area where the sun was shining kind of through the clouds, and we said, let's go there so that maybe they can see us. Maybe the soldiers are close and they can see us. And we started running there, and there's a little hop, the less gravity, there's a little hop step you do from dune to dune, and I fell. I wasn't good at the other guys were better at running in that than I was, and they passed me, so I was behind them. I don't know, a couple 100 yards later, I remember seeing a trail of smaller bugs pass me up and get those guys, and they were kind of over a dune where I couldn't see them. I remember seeing a trail of bugs go like that, and I was jumping from dune to dune, and I jumped high in the air, and I got a shot off and missed, and then something bit my arm off, my right arm, right under the shoulder. It's weird to think about it, but bit my arm clean off, the gun off and everything, and then it tackled me and held me face down on the ground. So I couldn't see what it was, but it was standing on my back and held me down. I could hear the other guys. I heard one of them scream, and I heard another one get basically chewed up. You know, I could hear it, you know, and he was on the other side of a dune. And then the bug grabbed me somehow by my backpack and lifted me up, and I was in shock because my arm was missing. I remember that feeling of shock. And a different kind of bug. The smaller ones were I don't want to say hairy, but they were kind of more grotesque looking.
Yeah, so how big were they?
The smaller ones were 2 or 3 feet, 2 or 3 feet by standing up about maybe 18 inches, kind of like this picnic table seat height. Mm-hmm. And the one that had me was bigger, and there were a couple more bigger ones that were in front of me, and they looked more like a spider, a big spider, with their face was straight with eyes down the side, and then like a pincher hook. And I didn't really get a look at their legs.
And how tall were they?
Those were 4 or 5 feet tall and probably 6 feet long. They were huge. Mm-hmm. One came toward me, and it looked way better than the other ones, and it was smooth. It was like a brown, and it had antennas moving around, and it came close to my face. The guy held the one that had me held me up to it, and it came close to my face, and I went immediately into like a dream state, and it was communicating with me, and it was cool. He said that he didn't want to kill me. I said, please don't kill me. I'm saying that, please don't kill me, please don't kill me. And he said, I don't want to kill you, but if I'm ordered to, I'm gonna. So just so you know. And but I don't want to kill you. We'll see what we're gonna do here. And this was kind of in a dream state. And all of a sudden, it went through my life. Like I would be standing in a room, and it would be standing next to me, like the hospital at the Indian Current base. I would be in that room there with the other kids, and we'd be looking on, and he was narrating it to somebody else. He was speaking. He's here. He's, you know, I don't know what he was saying, but he was narrating what he was seeing. And then we went to the moon base. We were there, and then on the ship, and different places that I went. It looked through chronologically through my memories, and it eventually showed me my house that I had no memory of, that I grew up in, the house that I was taken from. It showed me there. I was in that living room, and there was nobody there. It was me and him standing, and he said, "This is who you really are." And it let me go. And then I woke up. I was back into my painful state. You know, I was in pain, and it threw me down and let me go. And I kind of was on, my knees, and the little ones, it looked like they were talking to it. They were getting ready to go, and they all moved in unison. They moved together at once. When one of them moved through, the other ones would all move out of the way at the same exact time.
In terms of that insectoid that let you go, I mean, there was no direct communication, other than the communication that he's going to let you go and showing you those memories of your home. Do you think that it let you go because it became aware that you were part of some program run by these greys and the reptoids that abducted you originally? What
I gathered was that he thought that I wasn't some kind of badass. I wasn't a threat. I wasn't a warrior that was bent on killing them. I was just a cog in a machine. He said, "I'm going to let you go, and I want you to tell your superiors that we're not that stupid. That was the message he told me. He said, make sure you tell them when they ask you what I said, that we're not that stupid. And he left. And the other little ones, it looked like they had some discussion between them that I couldn't understand. And he turned around. He was on 4 legs, and he had 2 more like hand legs. And he turned around and he said, okay, go ahead. I could hear what he said. He said, okay. And the little one bit my foot off at the ankle. And I fell there. And as soon as they left, I reached in and I put my one auto tourniquet on. And then I crawled over the hill and I took the other auto tourniquet from a dead guy who was in pieces. It was basically a torso, and his pieces were spread out. And I took that and put it around my foot, and I tried crawling back in the direction I came. And I didn't go 50 feet, but I was trying. You know what I mean? I thought, I'm going to stay alive. He wanted me. You know, he left me with the impression that I was going to live. The 2 soldiers came and found me, and one of them was angry, and the other one, there was a bigger guy, and the other one was kind of a skinnier, smaller soldier, and he picked me up and started carrying me. They gave me some injections. They gave me water, and then he started carrying me back. And then the other guy was looking for more auto tourniquets, so I assumed that the other 3 guys had been engaged as well. He said he was mad at me for using 2 of the tourniquets, you know, and so he took off, and the other guy was keeping me awake. He was carting me out, and I kept wanting to pass out. And he was slapping me, saying, "Come on, it's going to be a sunset. Don't you want to see the sunset?" And it was cloudy. The weather was crappy. And I looked. There was a glimpse, you know, at the last minute of a kind of a purple line around above the clouds that were the sunset over the clouds in the distance. And the other guy came back. He said there wasn't enough tourniquets. They all died. And he hit me. He punched me. He said, "You dumbass! You shouldn't have used 2 of them. What'd you tell him?" You know, he slapped me. And then he took off. And they kept. I remember I was passing out. I could barely stay awake. And then we eventually made it to where I could see the doors, and he let me fall asleep. You know, right when we made it there. And I woke up the next morning with my arm and leg back on. My arm and foot were fine. And you know, I kind of did this. And it was tingly, still a little tingly, but I woke up, and then after that.
So maybe if you just kind of elaborate, what happened then? So you were taken back, and you wake up in the morning with your arm back and your leg back. So you were probably taken to some medical facility, and they used some technology to regenerate those limbs?
It was that facility. I was right. It was there. They had their own stuff.
But it was. Do you have any idea of how long? What was the time?
Overnight. The sun was setting when it was just getting dark when they got me in there. It was the next morning, and I woke up in a bed, and I was fine.
Okay, so literally within that period of like 10 hours or so,
12 hours,
an entire limb was regenerated, and your foot was regenerated.
And I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in shock. So then the remainder of us were put back in that place, and we stayed there. It was kind of like a lame duck thing for maybe 6 weeks. We had nothing to do. They canceled the program. They canceled it. It had failed. We were there for 6 weeks.
Were you debriefed about what?
Yeah, they asked me. I told them. They said, "What happened?" They did. They debriefed me the next morning, first thing, and I told them everything that basically I've told you.
Right. What do you think the insectoid meant by saying, tell them that we're not stupid?
I think that they were using like a bounding maneuver. I think we were bait, and that the soldiers had some kind of tech that was, when the insects would come toward us, they would shoot them. That's just a guess. I mean, I wasn't officially briefed on what we were doing. I was told, you go there, and
I see.
That was the extent of my knowledge of the operation. But all I know is after that was the last mission. When I said that to them, when I was debriefed, that they canceled the whole thing. So
then after that, this is when we have you going to Aries Prime? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and then they said, so they came in one morning, we were having breakfast in the cafeteria, and the one of the officers said, "You guys are going to Aries Prime, you're being reassigned, you're going to be here a couple more days." And a lot of the soldiers were like, "Aries Prime, I've never been, I don't get to go there." And they were mad, they kind of picked on us. It was like you're hazing kind of thing. And
so what did the soldiers know about Aries Prime at that time? Before you went there, what did you know? What did the soldiers know about Aries Prime?
I didn't know anything about it. It was just we were being taken somewhere that they were never allowed to go.
Okay.
And they were upset. They were jealous about it.
Okay. And so when did you learn you were about to be taken to Aries Prime?
Like I said, it was a couple days later,
Okay.
a week later. Maybe it was a little longer than that. It was a couple weeks later.
Okay,
And then we waited. There was a waiting period. We did nothing. It was boring, and we used to ask them for stuff to do, and they made us just move boxes around, and they pranked us. The
Right,
soldiers
right.
were giving us pranks. You know, we got pranked.
And can you describe the facility where you were with the soldiers? You know, that military garrison. What was it like?
Like I said, the building was almost like the way that everything was color coded was almost like a kindergarten place. It was not it was not pleasant to look at. You know, everything was pastel colors, and it was, you know, they were your standard chairs, you know, and tables like cafeteria tables, and like an office. There was just no windows,
Okay.
and then everywhere was like a tile floor.
And do you know anything about recreation? How did the soldiers?
They had all that stuff. When we got done eating, and during the time that we had nothing to do, when we got done eating, we went back to our cubicle place, and we just sat there.
Okay.
We literally had nothing to do.
Okay.
They
And the
just-
soldiers, do you know what they did with their R&R?
No.
Okay. But they were basically confined to that facility. They couldn't go off base.
Right, and they weren't happy about it. They didn't enjoy it. They all complained about it. I hate it here. It sucks here. You know,
Okay.
I heard that a lot, and they were all good friends with each other. You could tell that they had been there long enough to where they were all really good friends. And like I said, they pranked us. You know.
Right. Did they ever kind of talk to you about, you know, their term of service? You know, what their understanding was in terms of, you know, how long they were going to be there for, or what they were
none
going
of
to
that.
do?
We
No.
sat at our own table. They said, "You guys got to sit at the yellow table." And when we asked them why, they said, "Well, because there's not a pink one."
Okay.
That's what they, you know. But we had to stay in the yellow area, and we sat there, and they stayed away from us. Once in a while, they would come over and, you know, just poke a joke at us or something.
Right,
They made nicknames for us. I forget, you know.
Okay. All right.
In the next episode, Tony tells us about his time at Aries Prime, which is the main corporate colony revealed to exist by Randy Kramer, who says he spent 17 years on Mars as a super soldier from 1987 to 2004. This overlaps with the brief time Tony spent there in 1988. Tony says that he completed aptitude training where it would be determined what kind of post he would hold for his next assignment in the secret space programs.